Husband laughs. Hank had no idea that while he was peacefully having breakfast with his children, a horrific truth about his wife was waiting for him. Forgotten messages on the laptop, strange calls, and a massive fire in Boulder. Everything was like scattered pieces of a deadly puzzle. How long had Randy been lying to him? And what really happened in Boulder? All will be revealed the moment Hank decides to open the door to the truth. Before continuing in the story, tell me which city you are watching from. I want to know how far this video has come. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so I can send you exciting stories like this every day. Hank woke up to find his phone indicating 10 missed calls and a similar number of voicemail messages. He did not recognize the area code. After several run-ins with Chinese robo-marketing spam calls, he had set his phone to kick unknown numbers to voicemail. Usually, Beijing Betty did not leave a message. His daughters were not yet up, so he began to listen to the messages. It was then that he learned that his wife, Randy, was not in Jacksonville, Florida, visiting her parents and sister for the weekend as she told him she would be. Instead, she was in the burn unit of a hospital in Boulder, Colorado. Hank paused for a moment. His phone gave him push notices of news. It was usually a nuisance, but taking the time to turn off that feature had never seemed worth it. Something about fires stuck in his mind. He realized he had seen a news headline with the words "Fire in Boulder" as his phone screen came to life that morning. He got onto the phone homepage and saw the Newswire headline, "Freak Wildfire Consumes Suburban Boulder Subdivision Overnight." Interesting. Hank would be the first to admit that sometimes he was not the sharpest tool in the shed, but he really could think of only one reason that his wife of 7 years would lie about where she was going to spend a weekend. He slowed himself down on purpose, no point rushing into anything. He made coffee. The girls would not be up for at least an hour yet. He took the coffee over to his wife's work nook in the dining room. He found her laptop. He opened it to find that it was now password protected with a password that he did not know. But Randy was absent-minded and lazy, so he searched for a password written on some scrap of paper and found it buried at the bottom of the drawer of the little desk. After getting access, he found that she had not even closed her email browsers. She had just snoozed her computer, relying on her new password and apparently on her confidence that Hank would not invade her privacy. All assumptions existing in this family before this morning are no longer operative, Hank thought. There it was, flipping obvious. She was hooking up with her old college boyfriend, Josh Turner, at his Boulder home on a weekend when Josh's wife would be away. This was the guy who broke Randy's heart by falling in love with the woman who became his wife. But it seems like he developed buyer's remorse over the years. There was not a lot of detail in the emails, mostly just confirmations of arrival times. Hank assumed that they poured their hearts out to each other over the phone. One interesting factoid popped out. Her parents and sister knew and had agreed to cover for her. That was not in the emails, but in the Facebook Messenger chats that were also still open. They all thought that she should have married Josh, whose family had money. Hank was just numb, like he was watching a slow-motion car wreck happen and could not look away. He took the time to breathe deeply. If he didn't, his freaking Apple Watch told him that it was mindfulness time anyway. He really had to figure out how to turn that feature off. But Hank knew if he did not breathe deeply and calm down, he was liable to punch holes in the sheetrock walls of the house. He called the hospital in Boulder. When the switchboard answered on a hunch, he asked if Josh Turner was a patient. When they asked Hank to identify his relationship with Mr. Turner, he said he was a friend. The operator then said that she could not provide any information. That sort of answer sure made it sound like they had a patient named Josh Turner. Hank then called the number left on his voicemail. It was the direct line to the hospital admissions office. After he identified himself, a clerk there told him that Randy was brought in with third-degree burns, over 80% of her body, including damage to her lungs from smoke inhalation. The fire, it seems, had flared up suddenly in the drought-stricken area, spread rapidly with high winds, and cut off the only line of escape from the development. Over 100 homes had been destroyed. "Sorry," Hank said, "it can't be my wife. She's in Jacksonville, Florida. You must have incorrect information." He hung up. He knew that it was her in Boulder now. He could feel it, but he was not going to make this easy on anyone. He looked at his wife's computer again and found Josh's Facebook page. Randy had actually made him one of her friends. It was then easy to see who Josh's friends and family were, and he discovered Josh's wife. She had made a public post from her own family's home in San Diego, asking them for prayers because she had just learned that her husband was hospitalized with severe burns in Boulder. Time to get those prayers answered by a God of vengeance, Hank thought, as he contacted Josh's wife on Facebook Messenger to identify himself and share what he had figured out, leaving his phone number. A short while later, as he finished his coffee, he saw another notice light on the phone icon, indicating a missed call. He did not recognize the number, but there was a voicemail. It was from Josh's wife, Tina. Hank called her back. "Miss Turner, your first name is really Tina?" he had to ask. "Yes," she said with a sigh. "I knew what would happen with the name going into the marriage. I did it for love. It's just an icebreaker now. You must be Randy's husband." "Yes," I answered. I knew about her, of course, when Josh and I got together. He's been acting funny lately, but I never knew why. Now it is all making sense. "Is that your story too?" she asked. "Kind of. I knew about Josh, but Randy was not acting funny that I noticed." "You're taking it calmly, Hank. How are you doing that?" she asked. "My damn phone keeps telling me it is mindfulness time and to take deep breaths. I don't even want to look at what it thinks about my heart rate," I replied. Tina chuckled. "You sound calm too," I asked. "I'm taking pills," Tina said. "I don't know what they are. My sister had some. Josh is badly burned. They've already got him in a medically induced coma. He is probably not going to make it." I lost it when I heard that. Now I am just in shock, especially now that I know the truth about what really happened. "What's your wife's story? Badly burned?" "I don't know more. I told them it could not possibly be her because my wife is in Florida," I answered. Tina chuckled again. "Oh, the hospital is calling again. Let me get this and let's keep in touch," she answered. She hung up and Hank saved her number and contacts so that the spam blocker would not kick it to voicemail. A new call came in. This one was from Randy's father, Bob. Bob must have seen the news and gotten worried. "Yes," Hank answered. "Hank?" Bob asked. "Yes." Hank replied. There was a pause. Bob had never liked Hank, and Hank had disliked Bob right back when it was clear where he stood with the man, but they had always maintained a veneer of polite interaction. Bob noticed that was missing. "Hank, have you heard from Randy?" Bob asked. Hank paused. That question must have cost Bob blood, morally speaking. "Why would I hear from her without you knowing? She's up in her old room," I said. "Isn't she? Spending time with you, that shrew of a wife of yours and your other daughter?" Bob now knew that Hank knew. He sighed. "Hank, she does love you. I know we've never gotten along." Bob started to defend her. "Bob," Hank cut in, his voice rising in volume, "that is a load of nonsense. And before you keep talking and annoy me more, the deal is that you always dislike me. I guess you never thought I was worthy of your daughter, but that Josh was. Your wife and other daughter have both been smarmy jerks around me too. I've put up with it to keep the peace, but that's over now. And I want to be clear. If you were standing in front of me right now, I would punch you in the mouth over and over again until you spit out blood-soaked teeth. After that, I would beat both women with a tire iron, just for fun. So damn you to death, you and your lying family, you miserable jerks." Hank hung up. There really was no more to say. To save time, though, he blocked Bob's phone numbers and those of his mother-in-law and sister-in-law. "Daddy, why are you yelling?" his daughter Nicole asked him, walking into the kitchen. Her younger sister, Rebecca, followed her. "Daddy said a bad word," Rebecca announced. "He did?" Nicole asked. "Say it again, Daddy. I didn't hear it." Hank had to smile. "What was the bad word, Becky?" Hank asked. She frowned. "I can't remember," she answered quietly. "I think you must have heard wrong." "Now let's get breakfast," Hank announced. Today would be a pancakes day. 3 pancakes each and some orange juice later. Both girls were watching cartoons. It was Saturday morning after all. They liked Bubble Guppies. Hank hoped those were gateway cartoons to something more substantive like Pinky and the Brain or Phineas and Ferb. The phone rang again. It was Tina Turner. "The pills aren't working," Tina announced. "What?" Hank asked, surprised. "The pills that I told you that I was taking to calm me down? The ones that my sister gave me?" "Well, they aren't working," she answered. "Why do you say that, Miss Tina Turner?" Hank asked. "The hospital put me through to where they have Josh in intensive care. The nurse put me on speaker. She thought that it might help for Josh to hear my voice. even though they have him in a coma. What happened? Hank asked. I lost my temper. I yelled that his girlfriend is also badly burned and is probably going to die, and that it's his fault, and that after you and I both get our life insurance payments, we're going on a round-the-world cruise and spend the whole time with each other into a stupor for payback. He almost went into cardiac arrest after he heard me. Even though he's in a coma? Hank asked, surprised. Yeah, hard to say if my yelling caused it or if that was just a coincidence. He pulled through, though. Sorry, Hank replied. She paused. Sorry for what? Are you sorry that he nearly went into cardiac arrest or sorry that he's still alive? She asked. All of Hank's instincts were leaning toward cruelty, but he controlled himself. Just sorry for all of this, Hank replied. Me too, she answered. After a moment, he asked her, tell me about this cruise we're taking. Sorry, I don't know where that came from, she replied. I'm interested, though, Hank answered. I bet you are. She paused. Are you really interested, Hank? She asked. He answered. I saw on Facebook that you have a pretty face, but I didn't take the time to cyberstalk you properly. If I had to spend time revenge loving with anyone, you'd be a pretty good choice. Why do you ask? Do I have a shot? I don't know, she replied slowly. It's just that I have spent the time since I realized he was cheating, wondering what was wrong with me. Knowing that you're interested makes me feel a bit better. You're not so bad looking yourself for what it's worth, Hank snorted. Thanks. It's nice to hear that, even if my wife obviously preferred your husband. Maybe the problem is not us, she answered. Sounds like that could be right, Hank replied. Tina Turner paused again. Have you wondered at all why they did it? Tina asked. I suppose it's because they thought that they could have intimacy with people they weren't married to and get away with it. That makes it sound so simple, Tina questioned. What more is there? Hank asked. With an air of finality, Tina said, Look, we've both got a lot to digest, but let's keep in touch. We're the only two people who understand what the other one feels like right now. Okay, fine. I've got to go buy some Bermuda shorts on Amazon for the cruise and a Speedo bathing suit because if you've got it, flaunt it, Hank answered. She giggled. At least you're making me feel better. Maybe the pills are working. Get a cabin with a balcony. She giggled again. Bye. They hung up. Hank saw he had another voicemail. It was the hospital again. He called back and got connected to a nurse in Randy's room. This one also put the call on speaker. This must be a different nurse than the one taking care of Josh, but they all seemed to be working from the same set of instructions. He wondered if that was normal in the industry. Mr. Henry Becker, she asked. Yes, I'm Nurse Young. We're on speaker right now. I'm in the hospital's intensive care burn unit. Your wife is here. She's badly burned and she's in a medically induced coma. She's right next to me. We were hoping that the sound of your voice might help even if she's not conscious. Hank could not help but think that the hospital was going to have to update its family outreach standard operating procedures after today. But he had to ask, why do you think that? Hank asked. I wasn't there when they brought her in. One of my girlfriends was. She said your wife had a death grip on her arm and would not let go until she understood her message, which was call husband. So sorry. She fought with the team with every last ounce of strength that she had and would not let them do anything until they assured her they would pass the message. Okay, way too little and way too late, Hank thought. What should I say? Hank asked. Tell her whatever's in your heart, the nurse said naively. Okay, Hank thought. Game on. Listen, you miserable cheating wife, he yelled over the phone at his wife. I hope you die in pain and spend eternity in hell with Josh, who is also going to die. Just so you know, I'm going to spend all the life insurance money I get when you're gone to take Josh's wife, and I will never forgive you. The line went dead. The nurse must not have been paying attention when he started, but seemed to have recovered. Hank realized that at this rate, he was not going to meet his mindfulness goals. One day he would probably feel some guilt about saying all that, but today was not that day. Daddy, what does seduce mean? Becky asked as she held her teddy bear. Little pictures? Oh, it means to lead someone astray, Hank answered. She considered that with a serious face. When's Mommy coming home? Becky questioned. This was what made him really angry, having to tell his daughters what was happening. He'd have to think about that carefully, but he was not in the mood. As soon as she can, Bex, he told her. Becky went back to the living room. Hank watched her plunk down in front of the television. There was no way in hell that he was taking the girls to Colorado to go to a hospital to see their mother wrapped up in bandages like a mummy. He would rather deal with their difficulty in understanding than a memory like that. That decided him. 30 minutes later, he had tickets for 1 week at Disney World, a reservation for one of Mickey's on-site hotels, and plane tickets. They were leaving the next morning. Nicole would have to miss a bit of kindergarten, but that was just going to be the way it went. As soon as he got the tickets, the hospital called back. Turned out that Randy had a heart attack and died. All efforts to save her were futile. Hank asked the time. It was just about the time he yelled at her. Maybe he would suggest to Tina that she try yelling more at Josh and see if she had better luck pushing him over the edge. Maybe she just had to be more passionate about it. Nah, let her figure it out. Hank finally had to send Randy's health insurance information to the hospital to get them to provide him with the documents on the death. He called a local mortician and arranged to have her cremated. With her burns, Hank thought he should be able to get a discount, but they told him that they were still going to charge him the full price. He asked them to FedEx him the ashes after they got back from Disney. Once there, the girls were sad that Mom was not with them, but plied with sufficient sugar and princess makeovers at the bibbidi-bobbidi boutique they soldiered through. Josh hung on until Thursday. Tina had not yelled at him again, so maybe that helped him linger. Tina was now back in Colorado, staying with friends because her house was gone. She was being every bit the noble widow for the sake of her kids, she told Hank. She had not told them about Randy. Tina's kids were older than Hank's, though, and they knew that their father was injured in the fire, so it all would have been harder to ignore. Hank's kids had no clue. He would keep it that way for a while. Not saying anything nasty to them about their mother was going to be a challenge. Shortly after they got back from Florida, a FedEx guy came to the door with 2 items requiring signature. The first was a letter from his in-laws. The second was a box with Randy's ashes. The letter asked for Randy's remains for them to organize a memorial service and burial back in Randy's hometown in Florida if Hank did not want to organize something where he lived. They must have been calling around, he realized. Missing from the letter was any kind of apology for covering for Randy. That fact made the next decision easy. He got one of the neighborhood teens to babysit and left the girls giving the babysitter a full rundown on the Disney trip, complete with showing all their swag and the pictures on the iPad. Hank then drove to a nearby national park. With the box of Randy's ashes packed in a bag slung over his shoulder, Hank hiked to one of the rustic sections of the park. It had deep cinder block latrines instead of bathrooms. He filmed himself dumping the ashes in the latrine. As demanded by fate, he coincidentally had to urinate too. Hiking back to the car, he considered whether some therapy might be wise. But the thing was that he was no longer angry. Well, not angry enough to hit anyone. Destroying reputations was another thing. He still posted the video on Facebook of him dumping the ashes in the latrine along with an explanation. Afterward, he wondered if the National Park Service was going to give him some kind of a ticket for soiling the cesspool. If so, he would gladly pay. He never contacted his in-laws but saw in the paper that they had some kind of celebration of life service in Jacksonville without him or his daughters. He told the girls that Mommy had an accident while she was away and would not be coming back. They took it like he expected. Fortunately, their daycare and kindergarten teachers were wonderful and helped support them. The life insurance payment was nice. Randy had more insurance than Hank thought. The insurance payouts made it easier to rearrange his work life. He decided that what his daughters needed was lots of fresh air, especially at playgrounds that had lots of kids. And pretty young mothers, many of whom were very sympathetic to his tragic story, when he led them into dragging it out of him. He left out the bit about Randy cheating. He wanted to appear sympathetic, not pathetic. His kids started getting invited to lots of play dates to which the mommies had invited their pretty single friends. Hank began to see a way forward. Hank never got together with Tina Turner, although they did chat on the phone every now and again. After everything fell apart, Jack had to face emotions that no one ever wants to go through. When he was told that Emily had passed away from severe burns, he no longer felt anger or rage, only an overwhelming sense of emptiness. The betrayal from the woman he had spent his life loving had taken away his sense of direction. But then Jack realized he couldn't stay stuck in the past. He couldn't let this betrayal haunt him forever. He had to rise up and keep living, not just for himself, but for his children. What do I do now? How will I live? Jack asked himself each morning as he woke up. He no longer knew what his future would look like, but one thing he knew for sure was that his kids needed him. Sophia and Lily, his young daughters, had lost their mother. If Jack didn't become strong, how could he be the pillar they needed? Each day, Jack worked to find some peace within himself. He started engaging in activities that helped him escape the emptiness. In the mornings, he spent time with his children, talking, helping them with homework, and sharing joyful moments together. Jack knew that taking care of his children was not just a responsibility, but a way for him to rebuild his own life. He couldn't let grief consume his heart. He had to be the strong father his kids needed. One day, while Jack was making breakfast for the children, Sophia came up to him and asked, "Daddy, where's Mommy?" Her simple question pierced Jack's heart. He smiled, trying to remain calm, and replied, "Mommy is in a place far away, a place we can't reach. But she always loved you both, and I'll always be here to take care of you." Each time such a moment occurred, Jack felt the pain in his chest, but he understood he had to be strong for his daughters. He wanted them to grow up in a stable, happy environment, despite the absence of their mother. To make that happen, Jack began to open his heart again and reconnect with relationships he had lost over the years. He reached out to old friends, those he hadn't kept in touch with during the years of his marriage. One of them was Chris, his close friend from college. Chris had heard about what had happened and immediately reached out to Jack. "Hey Jack, I know nothing can change the past, but I'm here if you need help. We can start over, right?" Chris wasn't just a friend, but someone who helped Jack rediscover his strength. They began to exercise together, go on walks, and even went fishing. Simple activities that helped Jack find some peace of mind. "Thanks, Chris," Jack said after a long day of fishing. "I don't think I'd be okay without you by my side." As days passed, Jack felt more and more that even though life couldn't go back to the way it was, he could still make his new life meaningful. He started taking his children outdoors, teaching them to skateboard, and little by little, laughter returned to their small family. Jack realized that sometimes the simplest moments helped him overcome the greatest challenges. Jack's life still faced many challenges ahead. He would continue to face sadness and longing, but the important thing was that he no longer felt alone. He had friends, family, and most importantly, his children, the people he would do anything to protect and care for. Jack knew he would never forget Emily, but he had learned how to move on. He couldn't change the past, but he could create a better future for himself and those he loved. With the support of friends, family, and his love for his children, Jack had moved out of the shadow of betrayal and found light in the love that was real, the love he had for his children. Several months had passed since the painful events that shook Jack's world. His life had been a whirlwind of emotions, recovery, and finding new paths. The first few weeks after Emily's death were the hardest, filled with moments of deep sorrow and uncertainty. But now, things had started to change. Jack could feel it. He was no longer the man consumed by the pain of betrayal and loss. He was beginning to live again. Jack had always been a man who focused on his work, his family, and his home. His life revolved around routine: wake up, go to work, take care of the kids, and repeat. But now, after everything had fallen apart, Jack realized that he needed more. He needed to experience life, to truly live again. One Saturday morning, Jack found himself standing on the edge of a hiking trail, looking out over a vast green valley. He never would have done this a year ago. He used to think hiking was just a waste of time, something other people did. But now, with the fresh air filling his lungs and the beauty of the landscape in front of him, he felt free. Sophia and Lily were with him, giggling as they tried to race up the path. Jack smiled, his heart swelling with a kind of peace he hadn't known in a long time. As they reached the top, Sophia turned to him, out of breath but smiling widely. "Dad, look at that view," she said, her eyes wide with excitement. Jack looked out over the valley, feeling a quiet sense of pride in himself and his daughters. He had brought them here. He had made the choice to break free from the shadows of the past. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" Jack replied, his voice filled with a calm that he hadn't realized he had found. It wasn't just the view that was beautiful. It was the fact that they were here together, living in the moment. Jack had made this choice for them to move forward, to embrace the world outside the walls of their home, and to take chances that once seemed impossible. Over the past few months, Jack had also begun to engage more deeply with his community. He had joined a local support group for people who had experienced betrayal in relationships. At first, he was hesitant. He didn't know if he wanted to talk about his pain with strangers. But after a few sessions, Jack realized that it wasn't just about sharing the hurt. It was about healing together, supporting one another. One evening after a group meeting, Jack found himself chatting with a fellow member named David. They had both gone through similar experiences, and their conversations felt comforting in ways that Jack hadn't expected. "You know, I never thought I'd be able to trust again," Jack said, looking down at the floor for a moment. "But I'm starting to think it might be possible. Maybe not with her, but with myself at least." David nodded, offering a knowing smile. "That's the hardest part, man, trusting yourself again. But once you do, the world opens up in ways you didn't expect." Jack nodded, absorbing the words. He wasn't fully healed, not yet, but he was getting there. Meanwhile, Jack had also discovered a new career opportunity. His old job had always been just a way to make ends meet, but now Jack realized he wanted more. He had been offered a position leading a small team at a local nonprofit focused on helping children in need. It was something Jack had never considered before. Working in a field where he could make a real difference, giving back to the community that had supported him, it felt right. One evening after getting the call about the job offer, Jack sat down at the kitchen table with Sophia and Lily. "I have some news," Jack said, looking at them with a gentle smile. "I've been offered a new job. It's with a charity, helping kids who don't have a lot of support." Lily looked up from her coloring book and smiled. "That sounds awesome, Daddy." "It really does," Sophia added. "You're going to help kids?" Jack nodded. "Yeah, I think it's a good way to start over, don't you?" Sophia and Lily didn't fully understand the depth of what Jack was saying, but they understood that it meant a new beginning, and that was enough. As Jack embarked on this new chapter of his life, he felt a sense of purpose he hadn't known in years. He wasn't just moving on from the past, he was actively creating a new future. For the first time in a long while, Jack didn't feel weighed down by guilt, anger, or regret. He was embracing what came next. Looking back, Jack realized that everything he had gone through, the heartbreak, the betrayal, the pain, had led him to this moment. He wasn't just surviving anymore, he was thriving. And with every step forward, he was showing his daughters the most important lesson of all. No matter how hard life gets, we always have the power to rise again and make our lives better. Stories like this, filled with pain and betrayal, force us to pause and reflect on one of the most fundamental aspects of our lives: trust. Trust is the foundation of any meaningful relationship, whether it be romantic, familial, or even platonic. It is what binds people together, making them feel safe and secure in the presence of their loved ones. But when trust is broken, the aftermath can be devastating. Betrayal leaves scars, not just on the person who is wronged, but also on those around them. The wounds it creates can take a lifetime to heal, and sometimes they may never fully fade. However, as painful as this truth is, it also teaches us something essential about the human spirit: the ability to rise from the ashes, to rebuild, and to move forward. Hank's story is a poignant illustration of how someone can change after experiencing deep hurt. For most of us, betrayal from someone we love would feel like a crushing blow, an unbearable weight that we would struggle to lift. But Hank chose a different path. Instead of wallowing in self-pity or seeking revenge, he made the courageous decision to move on and rebuild his life, not just for himself, but also for his children. The way Hank navigated through his pain serves as an important lesson for all of us. Even in the most trying circumstances, we have the power to choose how we respond. We don't have to let betrayal define us, nor should we allow it to steal our hope for the future. Not everyone possesses the strength or resilience to overcome such immense emotional trauma. It takes incredible fortitude to stand tall after being betrayed by someone you trusted and loved. Yet, Hank shows us that while the road to healing may be long and fraught with obstacles, it is not impossible. In fact, the very act of moving forward is often what allows us to rediscover our strength and rediscover joy. It's about taking one step at a time, learning to forgive, not necessarily for the sake of the person who wronged you, but for your own peace of mind and healing. It's about choosing to rise above the pain and take control of your future. And this is where the true power lies, in our ability to rebuild. Rebuilding is not a passive process. It requires active engagement, a commitment to confronting the past, and the courage to embrace a new chapter in life. Hank did not let his betrayal dictate his worth or his future. Instead, he took the necessary steps to protect himself and his family, making decisions that would ensure they could continue to live and thrive. His story reminds us that even when life throws us its hardest challenges, we can still find a way to move forward. Though betrayal may try to tear everything apart, we still possess the resilience to rise from the rubble and find hope again. This story also brings to light a more universal truth. We all experience betrayal in some form during our lives. It could be the betrayal of a spouse, a friend, or even a family member. The pain of betrayal is a universal experience that transcends culture, age, and circumstance. But what sets us apart is how we choose to respond to it. Some may choose to stay stuck in their hurt, holding on to resentment, while others, like Hank, choose to rise above it, to let go of the past and build something new. Ultimately, it is our response to betrayal that shapes who we are and determines the course of our lives moving forward. If you found Hank's story inspiring and want to hear more tales like his, full of twists, turns, and powerful life lessons, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. By subscribing, you'll be the first to know when we post new content that will keep you hooked and entertained. Don't let the chance slip by. Click that subscribe button right now so you never miss an exciting video that could offer you a new perspective or provide you with the motivation you need to keep going. Whether it's a story of overcoming adversity, finding love, or facing the unexpected, our channel is the place to be for all the thrilling, inspiring, and sometimes even heartbreaking stories that you crave. Thank you for taking the time to watch and engage with our content. Your support means the world to us, and it helps us continue bringing these impactful stories to you. We are excited to share more stories with you in the future and look forward to being a part of your journey. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like, as it helps us grow and reach more people who could benefit from the stories we share. Your engagement also makes a difference by helping us improve and create even better content for you. And of course, if you think your friends would also enjoy these captivating tales, be sure to share the video with them. Let's spread the love, the lessons, and the inspiration to as many people as possible. Together, we can create a community that thrives on positivity, learning from the experiences of others, and using those lessons to shape a better future for ourselves and those we care about. So, hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, and let's continue this journey together. We can't wait to share more stories with you soon.